Hi, it's Laura from Six Figure Writing Secrets, and this week Upwork released some new information about how they're going to be charging clients and freelancers. Thought it would be easier to make a video to explain how this is going to work and then sort of how I perceive this will impact the working relationship that freelancers have with Upwork as well as clients. So let's start by looking at the changes for clients. First of all, clients will now have to pay 2.75% per payment that they make, or they're going to pay a $25 flat monthly fee. So anyone who's going to be investing a lot of money significantly on Upwork and hiring freelancers, it makes more sense to do the flat monthly fee, because if you're spending a lot on Upwork, more than $1,000 a month with freelancers or existing contracts that you already have with people, it just makes more sense to minimize your costs and pay that $25 flat monthly fee. Now, if you're not spending that much on Upwork, or if you use it as a client intermittently, it doesn't really make sense for you to pay the flat monthly fee. It might be less expensive for you to do the 2.75% per payment. Now, this is different than the cut that is taken out on the freelancer side. So this is applicable to clients regardless of whether or not the freelancer asks for their Upwork fee to be covered. So for example, right now, the way things stand before these changes go into place, if I quoted somebody a $500 project, I would usually say, $500 is the quote, but the actual project cost would be $550 to cover Upwork's fee, because Upwork takes a 10% fee from freelancers right now. So this 2.75% would be in addition to what's taken out on the freelancer side. And we're going to go over what comes out on the freelancer side next. Now, some people are up in arms about these changes, and they could have an impact on business on Upwork, but I've seen similar companies do pricing changes, and I think this could actually benefit freelancers over the long run and clients. So let me explain why as we go over the changes for freelancers. Now we're looking at the changes that Upwork is implementing for freelancers. Up until this point, you would be responsible for allowing Upwork to take a 10% cut of every project and every milestone that you complete on an individual project. So some people, sort of let that cost be absorbed in their initial quote. Sometimes other freelancers choose to use that as an additional fee. So they might quote somebody an initial project cost and then say you would also need to pay 10% more to cover Upwork's fee, because Upwork takes that directly out for the freelancer. Okay, so now the shifts are that for the first 500 billed on any project with that individual client, the fee is going to be 20%. So that's pretty significant. We're talking about doubling what you were previously paying on projects. However, if you and the client agree to work together for more than $500 on any individual project, then that drops back down to 10%. So in that sense, if you're working with the client and are making between $500 and $10,000 total, then you're at 10%. Finally, if you work with this client on a major project, or if you have recurring work that's billed through Upwork, that's going to be a 5% fee for lifetime billing. So you could actually start with someone on a $400 project, and Upwork would take 20% of that, which is pretty significant. And then as you continue to work with this client, it would drop over time down to 10%, and then ultimately to 5% if you worked with this client a lot. So what does this actually mean? First of all, it is better for anyone who has a significant working relationship with somebody already on Upwork. So if you've already earned more than $10,000 with a client on Upwork, you're going to be transitioned into this 5% fee on those projects as soon as this is active. Second of all, it ultimately encourages people to work with you over the long run. And that's something that you should be encouraging as a freelancer anyways. A whole lot of one-off projects is not only more work for you, but it doesn't really make sense with this new Upwork pricing model unless you're billing the client for that additional 10%. So what do I mean by that? If I quote a client a $550 project, I should clarify to the client whether or not that includes the Upwork fee or not. A lot of freelancers, me included, don't feel like we should be responsible for paying the Upwork fee. I mean, there's pros and cons to doing business with Upwork, but on major projects, 10% and now 20% is a pretty significant chunk of the project and might not make it worth it for you to complete it. Now, clients might not really understand this. You really need to be prepared to educate them a little bit about this. So one way that you could do this would say that you are no longer accepting projects of less than $500 unless the client also pays 20% on top of your quote to cover it, because that would mean that you're not as heavily impacted by this 20% fee. So that's definitely an option and something to consider. Fourth, I never encourage any one freelancer to put all of their eggs in one basket. You should never be relying on just Upwork or just Guru or just Freelancer or any other one site or one client as your primary source of income. These are great sites for part of your income, but over time as a freelancer, you ultimately want to transition away to have your own collection of private clients. Sites like Upwork are a great way to get your foot in the door. They're a great way to win recurring business from good clients when you can find them, but it also shouldn't be the entire source of your income. So in that particular situation, with these changes coming into place, think about how this impacts your bottom line over the long run. We want to be aware of the fact that you don't want to be relying completely on Upwork. So if most of your projects are currently small on Upwork, less than $500, I think that that should be kicked back to the client. Now, some clients are going to resist that because they're going to say, well, we're already being charged $25 a month or 2.75% to use Upwork on our end, and now you're telling me that your quote is going to be 20% higher than what I thought it was going to be. You don't even necessarily need to tell clients. That's another option too. You could simply include a comprehensive quote and say that it includes the Upwork fee. So what you would do with these smaller projects is you would quote it, you would, do the math on your end to quote it that initial amount and then add 20% to cover Upwork's fee. You don't necessarily have to tell the client that. I would consider it if you have existing clients, because they might wonder why all of a sudden things are costing 20% more. So explain to them, there's benefits of working with Upwork. You get the protection of your hourly work agreement, but you also have the downside of you have to pay a monthly membership and they're taking a cut of everything you make. So getting that protection in terms of escrow and hourly work protection does come at a price. Some people believe that, this is going to be the end of Upwork. I don't necessarily think that's true. Sites like this go through changes all the time. In fact, another site that sort of uses not identical but a similar sort of revenue sharing and pricing model is Udemy. And Udemy just went through a massive pricing change where they have specific set prices in a very small window for instructors to set their online courses at. And initially it led to a dip in the earnings for a lot of instructors, but I believe that that will even out over time. And I think that will even out over time on Upwork as well. Now, if clients perceive that there's too many fees, that they're paying too much, or, freelancers feel that they're simply giving Upwork too high of a cut of their earnings, then this paves the way for another third-party site to come in and get some of that business. So this leaves the door open for you to receive more private business. If clients are frustrated with Upwork, get their perspective as you work on this for a couple of months and see, are clients aggravated with this change? And it, paves the way for a third-party site. So one new one is LinkedIn Pro Finder. That one hasn't really been established yet, but a whole new site could emerge that charges lower fees on freelance business. Guru and Freelancer may pick up some of the slack. It just really depends. I don't believe it's going to be the end of Upwork. However, instead, it's going to encourage individuals who want to hire freelancers on a long-term basis to work on Upwork. It makes the most economic sense to hire someone on the client's perspective, pay the $25 a month, and then once you've gone over, the thresholds for earnings, the freelancer ends up having less and less of a cut taken out of their earnings on the site as well. So it's beneficial if you have a long-term relationship with clients or if you're looking for ongoing clients. This could hurt you if you have a lot of smaller one-off projects of, $200 or $300. You're not really going to likely be so happy with Upwork after a couple of weeks or months of doing this and saying, I'm getting penalized for having 20 smaller projects as opposed to having one really big client. So it may weed out some of those projects. Clients might also start to feel like Upwork could just be too much of a hassle to deal with and they could go somewhere else. But it really sets the tone with you as the freelancer. You're in the driver's seat, so you can determine what you want to do here. Like I said, I never recommend that anyone rely 100% on Upwork anyways. So instead of counting on Upwork to be the sole source of your income, use it for situations where you feel you can have ongoing relationship with this client, where you feel like you're going to earn $500 or more over a lifetime with this client, preferably focusing on clients that offer $10,000 or more. I still believe that getting your foot in the door as a freelancer can be much easier with Upwork. So individuals who are overwhelmed with the process of marketing and creating a website and coming up with all these things you need to market privately, Upwork is still a good way to get your foot in the door. And remember, you're in control. So you could work on Upwork for 3 months, not be satisfied with the system, and abandon it. Or maybe you build a solid relationship with a couple of clients on Upwork, and then you ask them for private referrals to other clients that you can work with off Upwork. You're really in control here. So remember that, you have the potential to decide what you want to do in this particular situation. I don't think it's going to be the end of Upwork. I think it will change things slightly in the short term. And ideally, from the freelancer perspective, we should see more clients who want to do big volume recurring business on the site. It is cheapest for them if they do that. So if this is drawing in those kinds of clients, that's beneficial from a freelancer perspective. It should weed out some of these, extremely cheap clients who want one-time projects. Maybe they'll go to Guru and Freelancer, and it will make the pool of work on Upwork better overall. So I'm curious to hear what you think about this change and whether this will be impacting your decision to stay on Upwork or to build a career on Upwork.